The dawn over Rominiax was fractured and surreal. Neon-lit spires reflected the first rays of a blood-red sun, bathing the city in hues of molten amethyst and gold. The streets, once teeming with life, now hummed with tension. The whispers of intrigue and power resonated like a living pulse throughout the metropolis. Aidra stood at the apex of the royal palace, her violet eyes scanning the horizon, sensing every tremor, every shadow that moved beneath the city's surface. The past weeks had been a tempest, spies unmasked, conspiracies exposed, and the energy nexus beneath Rominiax claimed, at least partially, by Aidra's growing mastery. But the final threat remained, a coalition of rogue factions, both political and technological, whose intent was nothing less than the total subjugation of the kingdom. Aidra knew this confrontation would define not only her reign, but the fate of every citizen who looked to her for protection. Kalen appeared at her side, his usual calm tempered with urgency. "They've consolidated beneath the city," he said. "The factions have merged their forces into one last strike. They intend to seize the Nexus tonight. If they succeed, the city falls. Every system, every defense, every life will be at their mercy." Aidra inhaled deeply, the violet glow of her eyes intensifying as the ancient artifact she carried pulsed in resonance with the city itself. "Then we meet them where light and shadow converge," she said. "Tonight, Rominiax will know the full force of its princess." Descending into the heart of the city's labyrinthine underbelly, Aidra and Kalen moved through corridors that had become familiar, yet still harbored dangers. The Nexus's energy thrummed beneath their feet, responding to her presence, a living entity entwined with her intent. Every step radiated power, every breath a synchronization with the city's pulse. In the central chamber, the rogue coalition awaited. Dozens of figures clad in armor, interlaced with illicit technology, moved like a single organism, their combined energy signatures creating a chaotic resonance that threatened to destabilize the Nexus. At the center stood their leader, a figure cloaked in shifting metal and shadow, face hidden but aura unmistakable, emanating authority and menace. "Princess Aidra," the leader intoned, voice amplified by tech and will, "you overreach. This city is ours, its power rightfully claimed. Step aside, and perhaps we spare its people." Aidra's lips curved in a calm but chilling smile. "Power is not claimed by force alone," she said. "It is earned, protected, and wielded by those who understand it, and I am its rightful guardian." The battle began with an almost ceremonial precision. Energy arcs clashed, machinery hummed in counterpoint, and the chamber became a symphony of light and shadow. Aidra moved with fluid grace, her abilities amplified by the artifact, each gesture a precise control over the energy flows that coursed through the Nexus. Kalen fought beside her, neutralizing threats with skill and discipline honed over countless confrontations. Yet it was not mere physical prowess that determined the battle. Aidra's mind, sharp and intuitive, anticipated every move, every tactic. She manipulated the energy nodes, turning the rogue coalition's own power against them, channeling resonance pulses that disrupted their technology, creating openings for her allies. A crescendo of conflict approached as the leader of the coalition advanced directly against her. The figure's metal-clad arm extended, releasing an energy strike designed to shatter the Nexus's equilibrium. Aidra met it with the artifact's resonance, a violet shield erupting around her, colliding with the strike in a titanic clash that sent reverberations through the chamber. "Your intent drives the energy," she realized aloud, her mind a torrent of calculation and instinct. Channeling every ounce of will, every ounce of connection to Rominiax, she extended her consciousness into the Nexus itself. Crystalline nodes glowed brighter, tendrils of energy weaving around her and responding. To her command, the leader faltered, overwhelmed by the synchronized power of the princess and the city. With a final surge, Aidra directed a controlled pulse through the nexus, neutralizing the coalition's energy conduits and dismantling their technological advantage. The rogue figures collapsed, incapacitated but alive, the threat contained by her precise command. Silence fell. The chamber's hum returned to its natural rhythm, and the neon glow of the nodes bathed the room in a serene light. Aidra exhaled, her violet eyes dimming slightly as exhaustion mingled with relief. Kalen approached, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said simply. "You protected Rominiax." Aidra looked out at the city above, neon lights flickering across the horizon like stars reborn. "Not just protected," she said. "I've awakened it, the city's pulse, its strength. It answers to its people, but it responds to me, and I will guide it as its princess and as its guardian." In the following days, the city celebrated the resurgence of stability, unaware of the silent war that had raged beneath their feet. Aidra, once perceived merely as a figurehead, had become a force of intellect, strategy, and power, her legend spreading through whispered tales among citizens and courtiers alike. Yet even as the city thrived, Aidra knew the lessons of the Nexus remained. Power attracts shadows, and while she had secured the present, the future would demand vigilance, wisdom, and courage beyond measure. From her balcony, violet eyes reflecting the dawn's crimson light, Aidra whispered to the city below. A promise. Woven with the pulse of neon and steel, Rominiax belongs to its people, and I will ensure it never falls to darkness. The city, alive and breathing beneath her, seemed to pulse in response, a living testament to the bond between a princess and her kingdom. In that harmony of neon and blood of power and responsibility, Aidra found not only victory, but purpose, and the echoes of her reign, the mysteries of the Nexus, and the whispers beneath the spires would guide the kingdom into a future she alone could shape. The eclipse of the neon throne had passed, but the legend of Aidra, violet-eyed princess, of Rominiax was only beginning. The night sky over Rominiax was fractured by neon streaks of energy. Maglev transports weaving through the towering spires, their trails casting ephemeral reflections on the city's mirrored surfaces. Yet amidst the brilliance, a shadow lingered, one that seemed to pulse with intent. Aidra stood at the highest balcony of the royal palace, her violet eyes scanning the streets below. The city slept, or so it appeared, but the subtle tremor beneath her senses told her otherwise. Kalen approached silently, placing a hand on the balustrade beside her. The masquerade revealed only a portion of the threat, he said. The spy's intrusion was a distraction, a lure. The real danger moves in silence, beneath the spires, in the veins of the city itself. Aidra's gaze hardened. Then we follow the veins. Tonight we uncover what lurks where light does not reach. The duo descended through the palace's labyrinthine corridors to the sublevels, areas long abandoned and cloaked in mystery. Holographic maps lit their path. Yet every projection seemed to flicker and distort, as if the very architecture resisted disclosure. These were not merely storage chambers or forgotten halls. They were the arteries of Rominiax, conduits for secrets, whispers, and schemes that had lingered for centuries. As they navigated the shadowed tunnels, a subtle vibration beneath the floor resonated, sending a ripple of unease through Aidra. "The city speaks," she murmured. "Its pulse. Someone is drawing power from beneath us." Kalen's jaw tightened. "I've sensed anomalies before, but nothing as precise as this. Whoever, or whatever is here, is feeding on the energy lines themselves. It's a resource no ordinary agent could manipulate." The tunnel opened into a massive subterranean chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. Bioluminescent fungi clung to walls, casting ghostly light on a network of arcane machinery, far older and stranger than any technology Aidra had encountered. Pulsing conduits linked to crystalline nodes embedded into the walls, each humming, with energy that resonated with the city above. Aidra's violet eyes swept across the chamber. This is not just a base, it's a nexus. Whoever controls this controls Rominiax itself, from beneath its streets. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with both elegance and menace. Cloaked in dark armor etched with symbols that shimmered like liquid metal, the intruder's face remained hidden beneath a mask that reflected the pulsing light of the nexus. Princess Aidra, the figure intoned, voice layered with both authority and malice, you venture too deep. These secrets are not meant for mortal hands. Aidra stepped forward, violet eyes blazing with determination. Every secret has a keeper, but every keeper answers to the truth. I am the Princess of Rominiax. You will not remain in the shadows. The figure's laughter echoed, metallic and distorted, bouncing off the chamber walls. Truth? Your truth is fragile. This city, your kingdom. They belong to those who can wield the pulse beneath its streets. Power is not given, it is taken, seized from the naive and the unprepared. Kalen drew a weapon, an energy blade forged with nanotechnology, shimmering as it adjusted to the chamber's residual energy. We are prepared, he said, and naive we are not. The intruder lunged, movements too swift for ordinary human perception. Aidra responded with instinctive precision, her own latent abilities, strengthened by the legacy of the ancient artifact she had discovered, guiding her every step. The chamber became a blur of motion, energy arcs crackling as their confrontation awakened dormant conduits. Light danced across walls, reflecting the intensity of their struggle. Amid the chaos, Aidra sensed something deeper. The nexus itself was alive, feeding, observing, responding to the conflict. Crystalline nodes glowed brighter, pulsing in sync with her heartbeat, and she realized the intruder sought not only to harm her, but to claim control of the nexus. A sudden surge of insight struck her. The energy, it responds to intent, to will, she murmured. If I can assert dominance, I can reclaim it before they do. Drawing upon the artifact's resonance and her own focus, Aidra extended her hands toward the largest node. Violet light erupted, tendrils of energy coiling around her fingers and racing through her body. The intruder hesitated, sensing the shift in power, their movements faltering for the first time. You underestimate the resolve of Rominiax's heir, Aidra declared, her voice reverberating with authority. The energy pulsed stronger, intertwining with the intruder's attempts, countering every strike, every manipulation of the chamber's power. Kalen, seizing the opportunity, moved with precision, disabling the intruder's weaponry and disrupting their armor's energy matrix. The masked figure staggered, forced back, and finally, with a frustrated growl, retreated into the labyrinthine tunnels, disappearing into shadows still pulsing with latent energy. Aidra released the conduit's energy carefully, allowing the nexus to stabilize. The chamber fell silent save for the faint hum of the city above. Her violet eyes reflected both triumph and the weight of realization. The threats to Rominiax were far deeper than political scheming. They were embedded in the very lifeblood of the city, ancient and relentless. Kalen looked at her, admiration and concern mingling in his gaze. Princess, you controlled it. The nexus responded to you. You're no longer just a ruler by title. You are its guardian, its channel, its force. Aidra's heart raced with both awe and determination. Then we prepare, she said. The conspiracies, the intruders, they are only the beginning. I will master this power, uncover every secret, and protect my people from the shadows that lurk beneath our city. Outside, Rominiax shimmered with neon brilliance, unaware that beneath its streets a princess had awoken the pulse of its ancient legacy. The battle for control of the city's soul had begun, and Aidra, violet-eyed and resolute, was ready to face every shadow, every whisper, every hidden threat that awaited. The night was no longer a time of rest. It had become a battlefield of intellect, power, and will. Aidra's journey through the layers of intrigue, mystery, and hidden energy was far from over, and the echoes of the past, the pulse of the present, and the unknown forces of the future would collide in the chapters yet to come. Twilight draped the city of Rominiax in a shimmering cloak of violet and gold, the neon-lit spires reflecting the dying sun as shadows lengthened along the streets. The air hummed with the distant pulse of anti-gravity transporters and the faint resonance of energy grids coursing through the city. In the heart of this metropolis, the royal palace had prepared for an event that would define the political and social landscape for months to come: the Masquerade of Lies. Aidra stood in her private chambers, her violet eyes scanning the holographic projections of the palace ballroom. The masquerade was more than a celebration. It was a stage for alliances, betrayals, and hidden agendas. Courtiers and dignitaries from across Rominiax and neighboring territories would attend, their identities concealed behind elaborate masks and shifting appearances. Among them, the conspirators, though now weakened, had allies who remained unseen. Kalen, ever vigilant, approached quietly. "The masquerade is a calculated risk," he said, his tone calm, yet edged with concern. "Many will come to test your resolve, to probe for weaknesses, but we can turn the gathering to our advantage." Aidra's lips curved into a subtle smile. "Every mask is a story, every gesture a signal. Tonight, we see who moves with honesty and who with deception, and we act accordingly." She descended into the ballroom, her gown a flowing cascade of silver and violet, woven with threads that shimmered like starlight. The mask she wore, intricate and elegant, was not mere decoration. It was embedded with nanosensors, allowing her to read micro-expressions, monitor vital signs, and detect subtle energy fluctuations in the room. Aidra's violet eyes, behind the mask, glowed faintly as they absorbed the crowd, calculating and assessing every presence. Music filled the hall, a blend of orchestral harmonics and synthesized resonance, designed to stir emotion while masking subtle communications between spies. Guests moved gracefully, their conversations layered with double meanings. Aidra felt the familiar thrill of strategy and awareness, the delicate dance of observation and action. Then she saw him, a figure whose presence stirred something unexpected. Within her, a visiting dignitary from a distant territory, his face hidden behind a mask, yet his aura unmistakable. He moved with confidence, scanning the room with sharp intelligence, and for a moment Aidra wondered if he too could perceive the undercurrents that she had so carefully mapped. Kalen leaned close, noting the reaction. "Careful, princess. Not every intrigue is meant for your curiosity alone. Some are dangerous, woven with threads of power we cannot yet comprehend." Aidra acknowledged him with a subtle nod, her focus returning to the gathering. She began engaging, speaking with nobles and ambassadors, testing their knowledge, loyalty, and intentions. Questions flowed like water. Innocuous at first, gradually probing, assessing, revealing cracks in facades. In a quiet alcove, Aidra confronted a seemingly loyal council member. "You speak of allegiance, yet your actions betray hesitation. Tell me, are you here to serve Rominiax or another cause?" The man faltered, beads of sweat appearing despite the mask. I serve the kingdom," he stammered. Aidra's violet gaze pierced the disguise, detecting the lie instantly. "Loyalty is more than words, remember that." She moved away, leaving him shaken, a lesson carved into the subtle hierarchy of power. Meanwhile, hidden drones, disguised as chandeliers and hovering lanterns, scanned the crowd. Each projection Aidra had prepared, each microsensor, fed her data in real time. Patterns emerged, subtle alliances forming, glances exchanged, energy signatures indicating hidden communication devices. She was weaving a tapestry of truth, unmasking the labyrinth of deceit surrounding her kingdom. Suddenly, The air shifted. A subtle vibration beneath the floor, almost imperceptible, reached her sensors. Aidra's heart quickened. This was not just a gathering of courtiers and dignitaries. Someone had infiltrated the ballroom with intent, a shadow within a shadow. Kalen tensed beside her. "A breach," he whispered. "They've sent someone to destabilize the event." Aidra's mind raced. She moved fluidly among the crowd, her presence both commanding and discreet. The intruder was clever, blending seamlessly, yet even the most subtle anomalies could not evade her perception. Her violet gaze fixed on a masked figure at the edge of the ballroom, whose energy signature pulsed irregularly. Aidra approached, every step measured as the figure turned toward her. Recognition flared. This was not a guest. It was a spy sent to extract secrets, to manipulate, perhaps to assassinate. The figure moved to intercept, and in the blink of an eye, Aidra's reflexes, sharpened by both training and the pulse of the ancient legacy she had recently embraced, activated. She dodged, flowing past the intruder, her hand brushing a concealed console embedded in the ballroom's architecture. Lights dimmed momentarily, projections flickered, and the intruder's movements were disrupted by the sudden reconfiguration of the room's environment. Kalen followed, neutralizing a series of automated traps the spy had triggered. "Princess, they've brought technology designed to bypass conventional defenses," he said, admiration laced with urgency. Aidra's eyes gleamed. "Let's see how they handle the unexpected," she murmured. With the ballroom now a controlled arena, she guided the movements of guests subtly, using the environment to corner the intruder. Finally, the spy was revealed, a man whose mask concealed a metallic augmentation, energy pulsing faintly beneath his skin. Aidra's violet eyes met his with unwavering resolve. "Your deception ends here," she declared. The spy faltered, realizing that the princess's awareness, her command of both strategy and environment, was far beyond expectation. Security swiftly neutralized the threat, extracting the intruder from the hall. Aidra surveyed the ballroom, her calm composure belying the tension that had rippled through her. The masquerade, meant to be a display of elegance and diplomacy, had become a test of vigilance, and Aidra had triumphed. Yet, as she returned to the center of the room, watching the masked dignitaries resume their carefully choreographed interactions, a subtle unease settled within her. The breach had been only a fragment of a larger puzzle. Someone, somewhere, had orchestrated it with knowledge of her strengths, anticipating her movements. Aidra's violet eyes, glowing faintly in the dimmed lights, swept over the crowd. "The game is far from over," she whispered to Kalen, who nodded in agreement, "and the next move must be ours, calculated, precise, and unrelenting." Outside, Rominiax glittered like a jewel of neon and steel, oblivious to the silent battles shaping its future. Aidra, the violet-eyed princess, had proven herself capable, yet the true challenge, the labyrinth of secrets, power, and betrayal, was only beginning to unfold. And in the shadows, unseen eyes observed, recording every movement, every decision, every pulse of energy, waiting for the moment to strike. The palace had settled into a fragile quiet after the storm of confrontation. The captured conspirators were secured in the high-security cells beneath the throne, their murmurs of fear and anger echoing faintly through the stone corridors. Aidra moved through the halls with measured steps, her violet eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of light, as if the palace itself whispered secrets meant only for her. Kalen followed closely, his presence a steady anchor. "You've turned the tide within the council," he said softly, his voice blending admiration with caution. "But the warning from Seraphine, it lingers. The true threat is still unseen." Aidra's lips pressed into a thin line. "I know. Every shadow in this palace, every whisper in these walls, tells me there is more. Something ancient, something the world has forgotten, is awakening beneath Rominiax. Their footsteps carried them into the northern wing, a place rarely visited even by the royal family. Here the corridors twisted unnaturally, as if the architecture itself resisted exploration. Aidra paused before an ornate door carved from obsidian-like material embedded with faintly glowing symbols she did not recognize. "These markings," she murmured, tracing a delicate finger over them, "they are older than any records we have." "I've never seen anything like this in the archives." Kalen leaned close, examining the door. "It's sealed by more than just stone. This is a containment ward, likely protecting or hiding something significant." Aidra's pulse quickened. The feeling of ancient power was palpable, almost suffocating. She could sense the latent energy thrumming behind the door, subtle but relentless, like a heartbeat of its own. The princess inhaled deeply and activated the key sequence she had pieced together from fragments of Seraphine's hints. Symbols shifted, lights pulsed, and with a soft click the door parted, revealing a chamber bathed in ethereal violet luminescence. The room was vast, circular, and alive. Holographic constellations floated in mid-air, spinning slowly as if tracing celestial movements from eons past. In the center rested a pedestal, and upon it lay an object that drew Aidra's gaze like a magnet, a crystalline orb, pulsating with energy that seemed almost sentient. Its glow was warm, inviting, yet it radiated a power that demanded reverence. Kalen's voice broke the silence. This is the source Seraphine mentioned, the forgotten artifact of Rominiax, lost to history and memory if it falls into the wrong hands." His warning hung in the air, heavy with implication. Aidra stepped closer, her reflection mingling with the orb's luminescence. "It calls to me," she whispered, sensing a strange resonance with her own energy, "as if it knows who I am. As if it knows the future depends on me." The orb responded to her presence, shifting subtly, projecting faint images. A city consumed by fire, towers bending under unseen forces, people fleeing as shadows claimed the streets. Aidra's eyes widened as she realized the scale of what was at stake. The conspirators' plot was merely a spark. A greater darkness threatened to engulf Rominiax itself. Suddenly, the orb emitted a sharp pulse. The chamber trembled, and holographic projections coalesced into a figure, a spectral being of light and shadow. Its voice resonated in their minds, echoing with authority and age. "Princess Aidra," it intoned, "you have awakened the legacy of Rominiax. The balance of your kingdom, the fate of your people, lies in your hands. To wield the power of the forgotten is to accept responsibility beyond the crown." Aidra's pulse raced, her mind reeling. "Who? What are you?" "I am the echo of Rominiax, the consciousness of the kingdom's founders," it replied. "You are the heir, not just in name, but in spirit. To protect your people, you must learn to control the forces that shaped them. Only then can you face the threats that slumber beyond the shadows." Kalen placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever." "This is Aidra. You're not alone. We face it together." Aidra's gaze hardened. The weight of her destiny pressed upon her, but instead of fear, a fierce determination surged. "Then I will learn. I will master this power, and I will protect Rominiax from every threat, seen and unseen." The orb pulsed again, images spinning faster, battlefields, intrusions, and cryptic symbols dancing in a language that only her intuition seemed to grasp. Aidra reached out, letting her fingers hover above the crystalline surface. The energy surged, connecting with her mind, filling her with knowledge and memory she had never known. Visions of ancient rulers, strategies, secrets, and warnings. Time lost meaning. The chamber became a bridge between past and future, between knowledge and action. Aidra's mind expanded, understanding the depths of her kingdom's history, the intricacies of its alliances, and the fragility of the balance she was meant to maintain. When the connection receded, she stood taller, her violet eyes brighter, glowing with newfound insight. Kalen looked at her, awe reflected in his expression. You've changed," he whispered, stronger, sharper, more present than ever before. Aidra nodded, feeling the weight of the knowledge she now carried. "Rominiax is mine to protect," she said, her voice steady, resonant, "and I will not fail. Every shadow, every whisper, every secret will bend to the light of the throne I serve. The conspirators, the external threats, all will see the resolve of their princess." Outside, the city shimmered in the first rays of twilight, unaware that beneath its neon-lit streets and towering spires, a force ancient and powerful had awakened. Aidra's connection to the forgotten legacy of Rominiax would change everything, her rule, her battles, and the destiny of the kingdom itself. As she and Kalen left the chamber, the orb's glow dimmed, but its pulse lingered, a reminder that the past and future were now intertwined in her hands. Aidra's journey had only begun, and the echoes of the forgotten would guide her through the trials to come. The labyrinth of intrigue stretched beyond the palace walls, and with her newfound power and insight, Aidra was ready to face the next wave of challenges, secrets, and revelations. The fate of Rominiax rested not on the throne alone, but on her courage, wisdom, and unyielding will. The morning sun filtered through the high windows of the council hall, but its light did little to warm the chamber. The marble floors glinted coldly, reflecting the intricate, holographic tapestries that traced centuries of Rominiax history across the walls. Aidra stood at the threshold, her violet eyes assessing every figure assembled. Today was the day the conspiracy would be confronted. Every whisper of betrayal, every secret alliance would be exposed under her gaze. Kalen remained at her side, a silent sentinel, his expression unreadable yet alert. Aidra felt the subtle weight of his presence, a grounding force amid the tension that saturated the room. The conspirators were already here, hidden behind layers of false loyalty, their faces masks of civility that could crack under pressure. Aidra's entrance silenced the hall. Courtiers and council members alike turned, startled by the unexpected. Authority in her stride. Even those loyal to the faction hesitated, unsure if their manipulation had been detected. The air buzzed with energy, the tension thick enough to taste. "Princess Aidra," intoned Chancellor Morven, his voice smooth, practiced, a veneer of politeness over the undercurrent of fear. "We did not expect you so early." Aidra's violet eyes met his, unwavering. "Nor did I expect to find treachery within these walls," she replied, her tone calm yet sharp. "But the palace does not lie, and neither do the shadows." Whispers rippled through the council. Aidra's strategy had been meticulous. She had traced every signal, mapped every clandestine corridor, and interrogated those whose loyalty was suspect. Today she would confront the faction head-on, dismantling their web of deceit piece by piece. Kalen stepped slightly forward, projecting calm authority. "We are aware of the hidden manipulations, Chancellor," he said evenly. "We know who has been altering schedules, redirecting resources, and sending coded messages. Aidra does not act without cause." A ripple of unease spread through the council. Some tried to mask their fear, others could not. The conspirators, realizing they were no longer in control, shifted nervously, eyes darting toward one another. Chancellor Morven's expression hardened. "Accusations are dangerous, Princess. Evidence must precede action." Aidra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Evidence," she said, "is all around you." With a gesture, she activated a holographic projection detailing the network of manipulation. Lines of energy mapped connections between council members, revealing clandestine meetings, covert signals, and subverted commands. Names blinked in red, the conspirators. Gasps echoed across the hall. Some members paled, others stiffened in anger. The room had transformed into a theater of revelation, the conspirators now exposed in their own web of lies. "Princess Aidra," Morven said, his voice strained, This cannot be. It can, she interrupted, her violet eyes blazing, and it must. Rominiax will not be ruled by shadows. Those who have sought to undermine the crown will answer for their actions. The conspirators attempted to flee, but Kalen had already activated palace security protocols, sealing exits and deploying non-lethal restraining fields. Aidra moved among them with measured precision, her authority absolute. Every member of the faction felt the full weight of her presence, the certainty that the princess would not be deterred. "You underestimated me," she said softly, yet every word carried the force of command. "And you underestimated the people of Rominiax. They will not suffer betrayal, and neither will I." In the midst of the chaos, one figure remained calm, a council member Aidra had not yet fully understood, Lady Seraphine. Her eyes gleamed with intelligence and a touch of amusement, as if she had anticipated this confrontation. "Aidra," Seraphine said smoothly, "you have exposed much, but do you truly understand the motives behind these actions? There is more at play than simple treachery." Aidra's brow furrowed. "Then enlighten me. Speak now, or be counted among those who misjudged loyalty." Seraphine's gaze held hers, unflinching. "The conspirators were pawns manipulated by forces that even you have yet to see. There are elements beyond the palace, beyond Rominiax itself, whose influence reaches into our very council. If you wish to protect your kingdom, you must understand not just the players, but the game itself." Aidra absorbed the words, the weight of their implications settling over her. This was bigger than she had imagined, the conspiracy merely a symptom of a far larger threat. Yet in her heart, determination surged. Every challenge, every secret, every shadow would be faced with clarity and strength. "Then we will learn," she said firmly. "Together, Kalen and I will uncover these forces. Rominiax will not fall into the hands of unseen manipulators, not while I breathe, not while I command." The council members, bound by force and illuminated by her authority, exchanged uneasy glances. The balance of power had shifted. Aidra was no longer merely a princess. She was a strategist, a leader, and a force that even the shadows feared. As the first rays of true sunlight touched the city, Aidra stood tall at the center of the chamber. Rominiax's future, complex and uncertain, lay before her like a map of starlit streets and neon-lit towers. The conspiracy was only the beginning. The labyrinth of intrigue stretched far beyond the palace, and Aidra was ready to navigate it all, with Kalen at her side, every step calculated, every move precise, and every shadow accounted for. The Council of Shadows had been unveiled, and Aidra, the violet-eyed princess of Rominiax, was ready to step fully into her role, not just as a ruler, but as the protector of her people and the architect of her kingdom's destiny. The hidden corridors beneath the throne room were alive, not with people, but with subtle hums of machinery and whispers of centuries-old secrets. Aidra moved cautiously, her violet eyes sweeping every corner, scanning the shadows for signs of movement. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, pulsating faintly with embedded energy conduits. Kalen followed silently, his steps soft, a guardian ready to intervene at the first sign of danger. "This is older than I imagined," Kalen murmured, his gaze tracing the delicate patterns etched into the metallic walls. "Some of this technology predates even the oldest palace records." Aidra's hand brushed the wall, activating a hidden interface. Holographic schematics flickered to life, revealing a network of tunnels, chambers, and escape routes running beneath the throne room. Every line of code, every projection was a warning. The palace itself had secrets that could protect or betray. "They weren't kidding when they said the palace is a living entity," Aidra murmured, her voice echoing softly in the labyrinth. "Every inch of this place has been designed to conceal and to protect. The historians' data had led them here, pointing to a faction operating from these hidden depths. Aidra's pulse thrummed in anticipation. This was where the conspirators' true plans were being executed. Their goal was audacious: to manipulate the throne itself, to control Rominiax from beneath its foundations. As they proceeded deeper, a faint vibration ran through the floors, a subtle disturbance, almost imperceptible. Aidra's violet eyes flared, reading the energy patterns with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime observing nuance. "Someone's approaching," she whispered. From the darkness ahead, a figure emerged, a rogue noble Aidra had never encountered, cloaked in shadowed armor that absorbed the low light of the tunnels. His eyes glinted with a mixture of fear and determination. "Princess Aidra," he said, his voice steady despite the tension, "you shouldn't be here." "I go where the truth leads," Aidra replied, her tone calm yet commanding. "And the truth has brought me here." The noble's lips twisted into a thin smile. "Then perhaps you should leave, or face consequences you're not prepared for." Before he could act, Kalen stepped forward, his posture tense, energy subtly rippling along his gauntlets, a quiet but unmistakable threat. The noble hesitated, calculating his chances, and Aidra seized the moment. She activated a discreet, holographic net that expanded rapidly, surrounding the rogue in shimmering energy threads. He struggled, but the net held firm. "Who sent you?" Aidra demanded, her violet gaze locked onto him. The noble's jaw tightened. "The Council, a faction within. They've been manipulating events for months, setting the stage for the true heir's removal." Aidra's pulse quickened. The conspiracy reached even deeper than she had feared. Every noble, every trusted aide could be a pawn or a traitor. The palace itself, magnificent as it was, held secrets darker than its opulent halls suggested. "You will help us," Aidra said firmly. "Trace the connections. Lead us to the source." With no room for defiance, the rogue nodded. His knowledge became the map through the labyrinth, revealing hidden chambers filled with encrypted terminals, secret communications, and rooms where whispers of rebellion had been carried out in silence. Aidra and Kalen moved swiftly, scanning, recording, and preparing to dismantle the conspirators' network. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the faint hum of energy fields and the occasional clatter of distant machinery. Aidra's mind worked like a finely tuned instrument, piecing together fragments of information, predicting moves before they occurred. Every turn in the labyrinth revealed more of the plot: secret alliances, hidden technologies, and plans to destabilize the monarchy itself. At the heart of the labyrinth, they discovered the command chamber, a circular room bathed in low crimson. Light filled with consoles and holographic projections detailing the conspirators' plans. A pulse of betrayal ran through Aidra's veins. The sheer scale of the plot was staggering, yet amidst the tension, she felt a surge of resolve. This was her palace, her people, her kingdom, and she would not allow shadows to claim it. Kalen placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have the advantage now," he said. "They don't know we're here." Aidra nodded, her violet eyes scanning the projections. "We strike at dawn," she said. "We dismantle the faction, and we show Rominiax that its princess is not only a ruler, but a protector. Those who seek to manipulate this kingdom will find no sanctuary." Outside, the city of Rominiax shimmered with neon and energy, oblivious to the silent battle taking place beneath the throne. But Aidra felt its heartbeat in her own, a rhythm of power, ambition, and the unyielding will to survive and dominate. As she and Kalen prepared to exit the labyrinth, a subtle vibration ran through the floors, new movement, new threats. Aidra's pulse quickened, not with fear but anticipation. Every shadow, every whisper, every concealed threat was a challenge. And she, Princess Aidra of Rominiax, would face them all with the mind of a strategist, the heart of a ruler, and the courage of one who would never yield. The labyrinth beneath, the throne had revealed much, but it had only just begun. The first rays of sunlight barely penetrated the high obsidian-tinted windows of the Rominiax throne room, painting long, fractured streaks of gold across the cold marble floors. Aidra moved with quiet precision, her violet eyes scanning every contour of the hall. Even empty, the chamber exuded power, a living testament to her family's dominion over Rominiax. Today, however, it felt like a stage set for deception. Kalen trailed silently behind her, a constant shadow, his own gaze, sharp and alert. The historian's data had led them here. Patterns in palace activities suggested that a clandestine faction planned to strike during the morning council session. Aidra had anticipated the location, her intuition, honed through years of observing. The intricate dance of court politics had never failed her. "We must be ready for anything," Kalen murmured, his voice low and steady. "They are not amateurs. Each of them is trained to operate under extreme pressure." Aidra's lips pressed together. "We do not react, Kalen. We predict, we outmaneuver, and we control." Her voice, though soft, carried the authority of a ruler whose instincts had never failed. They entered the throne room through a private corridor, bypassing the main entrance. The adaptive doors recognized Aidra's biometric signature, sliding open silently. The throne, carved from dark Rominian obsidian and reinforced with magnetic stabilization grids, sat at the far end of the hall. Its presence, massive and commanding, dominated the chamber. Aidra's eyes flickered to the holographic displays lining the walls. Each screen showed subtle anomalies in palace traffic, invisible footsteps, doors that flickered in and out of perception, signals of communication that should not exist. The conspirators were already inside the palace, hiding in plain sight. "Look there," Kalen whispered, pointing to a flicker near the council dais. A figure materialized briefly, a rogue noble in the midst of reprogramming a control panel, connected to the palace's defensive systems. Aidra's pulse quickened. With a subtle motion, she activated her personal cloaking field, blending into the ambient shadows. Kalen mirrored her action. Together they moved like whispers through the vast chamber, tracking the rogue operative without being detected. The conspirator, unaware of their presence, completed his manipulations and prepared to leave. Aidra's mind raced. She could confront him directly, or she could trace the modifications back to their origin. Patience and observation would yield more than a hasty attack. "Wait," she murmured. "We need to know how deep this runs. Follow the signal." They traced the rogue noble's digital footprint, winding through layers of encrypted palace, networks, and adaptive security systems. Every turn revealed more anomalies, signals from unlikely places, whispers of manipulation from courtiers and aides previously considered loyal. The conspiracy was vast, far beyond anything Aidra had imagined. Kalen's hand brushed against hers as they paused near a balcony overlooking the city. "Princess, they're watching." "I can feel it," he warned. Aidra's violet eyes narrowed. The palace's sensors were not the only thing alive with awareness. Human eyes, trained and calculating, monitored her every move. She adjusted her strategy, activating secondary cloaking protocols and diverting surveillance feeds. The conspirators would soon realize someone was tracking them, but by then it would be too late. Moving swiftly, Aidra and Kalen descended into the chamber below. The throne. Hidden service passages allowed them access to the main council floor without crossing the open hall. The rogue noble was still inside, unaware that the princess herself was now stalking him through the palace's veins like a predator. Aidra struck with quiet precision. Her voice, cold and controlled, cut through the chamber like a blade. "Stop what you are doing." The noble froze, eyes wide with fear. "Princess, Explain," she commanded. Every word carried authority. Every gesture reinforced dominance. Kalen's presence at her side made resistance futile. I was following orders," the noble stammered, gesturing nervously toward a hidden console. "From the council. They said, "The crown must be weakened." Aidra's pulse quickened. The conspiracy reached far higher than she had anticipated. The council itself, the very body meant to advise and protect her, was compromised. She exchanged a glance with Kalen, the unspoken understanding between them clear. The palace was no longer just a place of governance, it was a battlefield, and every ally might be a foe. "We will uncover every strand of this web," Aidra said firmly, her violet eyes blazing. "Starting now." She manipulated the rogue noble's console, using a combination of her intuition and the palace's adaptive AI to trace the command signals to their origin. The trail led them to a concealed chamber beneath the throne, hidden behind layers of energy barriers and automated defense protocols. Aidra's heartbeat thrummed in rhythm with the humming systems. Together, she and Kalen bypassed the defenses, entering a room filled with complex holographic interfaces and encrypted data. Banks, schematics of the palace, schedules of the council, and coded messages flashed before them. Every screen, every projection revealed the depth of betrayal, a faction within the court seeking to destabilize Rominiax, using insiders and hidden technology to manipulate events. Kalen glanced at her, his expression grim. This is bigger than we thought. They're not just aiming at you. They want control over the entire kingdom." Aidra's violet eyes gleamed with determination. "Then we show them that Rominiax is not to be taken lightly. Every shadow has a master, and I intend to be that master." She activated the room's security protocols, locking down the chamber and encrypting all outgoing communications. For the first time, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. They had uncovered the heart of the conspiracy, and now they held the advantage. But even as they prepared to exit, a new alert flashed across the holographic display. Motion detected in the lower halls. Aidra's pulse quickened. The conspirators were aware that someone was hunting them. The game was escalating, and the palace itself seemed to pulse with anticipation. "Kalen," Aidra whispered, her voice calm yet sharp. "Tonight we step out of the shadows, and we confront them not as victims, but as rulers of our own fate." The neon glow of Rominiax shimmered through the palace windows, a city unaware of the silent battle unfolding within. Aidra's heart beat in time with the city, a rhythm of power, courage, and an unyielding resolve to protect her people, and claim the throne not just as a princess, but as the true ruler of Rominiax. As they prepared to descend into the lower halls, the palace whispered promises of danger, intrigue, and revelation. And Aidra, the princess with violet eyes and the mind of a strategist, would face it all with determination, intelligence, and the unwavering courage that had marked her as the future of Rominiax. Night descended over Rominiax like a velvet curtain, casting the palace in shades of deep indigo and silver. Aidra moved silently through the private corridors, Kalen shadowing her like an extension of her own instincts. The air hummed with electricity, the city's neon glow spilling through the tall, arched windows and casting fractured patterns on the obsidian floors. Every corridor, every archway seemed alive, whispering secrets if one knew how to listen. "This is where we begin," Kalen said, his voice a soft murmur that blended with the faint hum of the palace's energy shields. "We follow the threads from the historian's data and see where they lead." Aidra's violet eyes scanned the hallways, adjusting to the dim light. Each shadow could conceal a spy, an assassin, or an informant. She could feel the pulse of the palace in her veins, the subtle vibrations of hidden mechanisms, and adaptive walls that shifted silently, observing intruders and potential threats alike. In this city of opulence and technology, danger hid in plain sight. Their first target was a minor noble named Saran Veld, identified in the historian's data as someone whose loyalty wavered dangerously. Aidra had met him briefly during the coronation ceremonies, an outwardly charming figure, polite, with a calculated smile. Yet beneath his polished exterior, the historian's logs suggested a subtle but significant manipulation of palace security protocols. They reached the private quarters of the noble, a wing rarely used except during formal receptions. Kalen tapped into the access panel, bypassing standard security with fluid precision, and the door slid open without a sound. Inside, the room was lavish yet sterile, everything meticulously arranged, almost to the point of obsession. Holographic. Displays flickered faintly along the walls, some active, some dormant. Aidra's eyes caught movement near one of the balconies. Saran was there, unaware of their approach, leaning against the railing, his expression unreadable, as he spoke softly into a concealed communicator. Words in a foreign code bounced through the channel, signaling the coordination of some covert operation. Aidra's pulse quickened. She had found the first snake in her palace. Kalen moved closer, whispering in her ear. Do you want to confront him directly, or observe for now? The choice defines the next move. Aidra considered. Observation would give more intelligence, but confrontation would assert her authority and test Saran's reaction. She chose a middle path. With a subtle gesture, she activated a cloaking field embedded in her gown, blending her and Kalen into the room's shadows. Saran continued his conversation, oblivious to the hidden observers. Aidra recorded every gesture, every nuance, every slip of inflection. Patterns emerged, contacts, schedules, and subtle manipulations designed to exploit palace vulnerabilities. He was not the mastermind, but a crucial pawn in a larger conspiracy. Suddenly, Saran turned sharply, as if sensing something. Aidra held her breath. His eyes swept the room, but he saw nothing. Still, the slight tension in his shoulders suggested he knew someone was near. Kalen's hand found hers, grounding her, reminding her that she was not alone in this labyrinth of deceit. "Princess," Kalen whispered, "we may need to accelerate our plan." His awareness could become dangerous. Aidra nodded imperceptibly. She allowed her violet eyes to flare subtly, triggering a discreet security alert only perceivable by those attuned to the palace's internal monitoring system. The adaptive walls hummed, and the room's surveillance cameras activated without tripping any external alarms. Aidra's presence was ghostly, her authority absolute, even in secrecy. Saran finally finished his conversation, placing the communicator in a hidden compartment beneath his desk. He stepped back from the balcony, unaware of the invisible eyes tracking his every motion. Aidra seized the moment, revealing herself with deliberate grace, her gown shimmering as it interfaced with the palace's adaptive lighting. "Saren Veld," she said, her voice calm but commanding, echoing slightly through the room. "I believe we need to have a discussion." Saran spun, his expression a mix of shock and calculated composure. "Princess Aidra, I did not expect me to catch your duplicity?" Aidra interrupted, her violet eyes fixed on him, unyielding. "You underestimate the reach of Rominiax and the vigilance of its princess." Kalen stepped forward, a silent force beside her. Saran's composure faltered further under their joint. "Scrutiny. You don't understand what you're dealing with," he stammered, but the words lacked conviction. Aidra advanced, each step deliberate. "Enlighten me," she said, "or perhaps I should inform the council of your misdeeds." A flicker of panic crossed Saran's face. He realized the princess did not merely command authority, she commanded insight, intuition, and an unflinching willingness to act. He attempted a bluff, claiming political motives and pressure from unseen allies, but Aidra saw through the fabrication. "You serve a shadow, Saran," she said, her voice softening, yet remaining firm. "And that shadow threatens not only me, but every citizen of Rominiax." The room held a tense silence, broken only by the hum of adaptive walls and distant city sounds. Kalen's presence reinforced her authority, his calm focus combined. With her sharp intuition, left Saran with no avenue for deception. Finally he sighed, the weight of exposure pressing down. "Very well," he muttered, "but you do not yet see the full extent of what's coming. This is larger than any of us." Aidra's pulse thrummed with both caution and anticipation. "Then we prepare," she said, "because I will face whatever is coming, and I will not falter. Not as a princess, not as a ruler, and certainly not as someone who trusts her instincts." Blindly, Kalen's hand brushed hers again, a silent reminder of partnership and unspoken trust. Together they would unravel the conspiracy, thread by thread, shadow by shadow. And as Saran Veld realized the futility of his position, Aidra understood one crucial truth. The palace itself, magnificent as it was, could no longer be taken for granted. Every corridor, every noble, every servant could be part of the web. Outside, the neon city of Rominiax pulsed like a heartbeat, oblivious to the silent war unfolding within its obsidian walls. The night held its breath as the princess and her mysterious ally took the first tangible step toward exposing the conspirators lurking in the palace's depths, a journey that would test their minds, hearts, and courage in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Dawn broke over Rominiax with a cold, metallic shimmer. The neon city below paled against the rising sun, casting long, fractured shadows across the palace's obsidian spires. Aidra stood on the balcony of her private chambers, the morning breeze brushing against her violet eyes and the fine strands of her silver-laced hair. Her thoughts churned relentlessly, replaying the masquerade's events. Whoever had breached the palace's security had done so with precision and foresight. This was no ordinary plot. It was a calculated maneuver designed to destabilize her rule from within. She turned from the balcony as Kalen appeared silently behind her, a shadow among shadows. "Sleep eluded you," he observed, his voice low, carrying the faint scent of the city's neon-infused air. Aidra didn't answer immediately. "I have questions," she finally said, her tone sharp, "about the holographic map, the diplomat, and the subtle manipulations in the masquerade. Someone inside the palace is orchestrating this. But who?" Kalen's eyes flickered with the same intensity she felt, burning inside her. "We will find out," he said. "But not all answers are revealed by observation alone. Some truths require direct engagement." Aidra followed him down the marble staircase into the heart of the palace, the halls stretching endlessly like veins of black obsidian. The city outside reflected off the polished floors, transforming corridors into rivers of neon light. Aidra felt a shiver of anticipation. This palace, her home and fortress, had become a labyrinth of secrets. Their first stop was the intelligence wing, a high-security sector usually reserved for the kingdom's top strategists. Kalen accessed it with fluid precision, his fingers dancing across the biometric interface. The doors hissed open, revealing walls lined with servers and holographic monitors, displaying real-time palace activity, citywide surveillance, and encrypted communications. Aidra's eyes widened at the scale of information. "This is where I work," Kalen said quietly, "and where you will begin to see the truth of Rominiax's vulnerabilities. Someone here has access to channels that bypass even the crowns. Oversight. We need to identify them before they act." Aidra's mind raced as they sifted through data streams, decoding messages embedded within seemingly benign transmissions. One particular anomaly caught her eye, a pattern of scheduled maintenance in sections of the palace that were supposedly unoccupied, combined with subtle alterations in the palace's AI monitoring logs. Someone had created invisible corridors, digital loopholes that allowed movement unseen by even the most advanced sensors. "They're testing me," Aidra muttered. "They want to see if I notice the gaps, if I react." Kalen nodded, his expression darkening. "And you have. That is why you are a threat to them. But they are patient, very patient." Aidra's pulse quickened as a notification blinked on one of the monitors. a meeting request from a supposed palace historian named Lyron Voss, claiming a discovery that required her immediate attention. The timestamp indicated the request was sent at 3:14 a.m., long before the masquerade, and yet it had been filtered to her morning schedule. "They're drawing you in," Kaelin said, reading her expression, "and they expect you to walk willingly into the trap." Aidra's violet eyes narrowed. "Then we change the game. We don't follow their lead. We create our own path." She followed Kaelin through the palace corridors, avoiding the main halls where servants and guards shuffled about, unaware of the silent war unfolding around them. They entered a rarely used service passage, lined with obsolete tech and hidden maintenance shafts. Aidra felt the thrill of forbidden knowledge. Every corner of the palace seemed to breathe with secrets, and for the first time she understood the depth of the web she had inherited, not just a kingdom, but a living entity of surveillance, intelligence, and subterfuge. They arrived at the historian's office, a room steeped in archaic architecture, overlaid with sleek, modern holographic interfaces. Lyron Voss was already inside, his back to the door, engrossed in a floating projection of ancient palace schematics. At the sound of their entrance, he spun, his expression carefully neutral. "Princess Aidra," he said, bowing slightly, "and your companion." "I did not expect an early visit." Aidra's gaze pierced him. "You sent the message. Why? And why now?" Lyron's hands trembled almost imperceptibly as he manipulated the holographic interface. I have discovered irregularities," he admitted. "Not all loyal to the crown are truly loyal. Some have agendas that threaten Rominiax itself." Aidra's heart pounded. "Names," she demanded. "Show me the evidence." He hesitated, then flicked the interface. Data streams and encrypted logs filled the room, highlighting the names of palace aides, minor nobles, and administrative officials, those who had been manipulated or coerced by a shadow faction. Aidra studied the list carefully, recognizing a few familiar faces, but noting several unexpected names. The conspiracy ran deeper than she had imagined, weaving into the very fabric of Rominiax's governance. Kaelin stepped closer, his hand lightly brushing hers as he examined the interface. "This is why they tested you," he murmured, "to measure your reaction, your intelligence, your intuition. You are not just the princess. They fear you." Aidra's violet eyes met his. For a fleeting moment the palace walls, the neon city outside, and the weight of her crown all seemed to dissolve. A strange warmth surged through her chest, a connection forming between them that transcended the immediate danger. She had relied on him before, but now, in the intimate quiet of this hidden office, she realized just how much she depended on him. "We cannot waste time," she said, regaining her composure. "They will act again, and next time it may not be a test. We must anticipate every move." Kaelin nodded. "Then we begin tonight," he said. "We observe, we track, and we prepare. Shadows are patient, Princess, but patience has limits, and so do we." Aidra straightened, her violet eyes, scanning the holographic schematics once more. Every corridor, every hidden passage, every flickering sensor was now a piece of a larger puzzle, a puzzle she intended to solve before the shadow faction could strike. As they exited the office, the neon glow from the city painted their silhouettes against the obsidian palace walls. Aidra's pulse thrummed with anticipation and a spark of excitement. The conspiracy was unfolding, the game was beginning, and she would meet it not as a pawn, but as a ruler who wielded shadows as deftly as light. Outside, the city of Rominiax shimmered like a living jewel, unaware of the silent war that had begun. Within its palace, and of the princess and her enigmatic ally who were determined to claim the truth no matter the cost. The evening descended over Rominiax like a slow tide, painting the neon city in gradients of electric blue, violet, and amber. The sprawling metropolis pulsed below the palace, its countless towers flickering with holographic advertisements, political messages, and public celebrations of the princess's coronation. From her balcony, Aidra surveyed the city she had inherited, a kingdom that shimmered with prosperity yet teetered on invisible fault lines. She felt the weight of her people's eyes upon her, but tonight those eyes were blind to the shadows that stalked her halls. The palace buzzed with a rare, clandestine event, a private masquerade organized under the pretense of honoring allied dignitaries, but in reality a perfect stage for observation, deception, and subtle testing of loyalties. Hollow masks floated in mid-air, customizable to reflect the wearer's identity or disguise them completely. The guests, nobles, diplomats, technocrats, drifted across the ballroom in an eerie combination of elegance and futuristic spectacle. Aidra descended the staircase, her gown flowing with adaptive fabric that shimmered in tandem with the neon hues projected across the room. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd, piercing through the layers of holographic glamour, looking for irregularities. Was there, at the far end of the ballroom, that she noticed him. Kalen, the mysterious man from the morning, stood in the shadows, partially masked, observing the assembly with calm precision. Aidra's pulse quickened. He had been waiting, or perhaps watching, all along. His eyes found hers, and for a brief instant the mask of anonymity seemed irrelevant. There was something magnetic in his presence, a quiet power that drew attention without demanding it. Kalen approached, his steps almost silent against the polished floor. "Princess," he said, his voice carrying easily over the subdued hum. "Of the masquerade's music, it seems the palace has many eyes tonight, but not all of them are loyal." Aidra's lips pressed together. "And which of them should I trust?" she asked, her tone steady, a blend of authority and challenge. "You speak of shadows, yet you arrive cloaked yourself." He inclined his head slightly, a faint smile, brushing his lips. "Trust is a currency more valuable than any in Rominiax. Consider me an investment." Their exchange was interrupted as a sudden flicker ran across the holographic display suspended from the ceiling. Patterns shifted, subtly distorting the faces of the guests, flickering into symbols only perceptible to those who knew the language of the palace's surveillance system. Aidra's violet eyes narrowed. Someone was sending a signal. Hidden. Messages within the holographic layers, a communication meant to be invisible to the untrained eye. Kalen followed her gaze. "You see it too," he murmured. "The first step in uncovering the truth is recognizing that nothing here is as it seems." Aidra moved deliberately through the crowd, her adaptive gown flowing with calculated grace. Every step measured, every glance a silent survey. The masquerade was not merely ceremonial, it was a map of influence, a lattice of power, and within it hid her first tangible clue. A diplomat from a neighboring city-state lingered near the north corridor, seemingly distracted by the holographic displays, yet his movement betrayed nervous intent. Aidra's instincts prickled. This man was not here by chance. She slipped through. The crowd, Kalen, shadowing her effortlessly. Together they approached the diplomat. Aidra spoke first, her voice calm but commanding. "You've traveled far to be here, yet your eyes betray another purpose. Tell me, why are you really in the palace tonight?" The diplomat froze, his composure faltering under the scrutiny of her violet gaze. Before he could respond, Kalen placed a subtle hand on Aidra's arm, his touch light yet grounding. Aidra felt a rush of warmth, a mix of adrenaline and something unspoken between them. She had no time to analyze the feeling. The diplomat's eyes darted nervously toward a side door, and then, in a swift motion, he activated a small device concealed within his sleeve. A holographic projection erupted, forming a swirling semi-transparent sphere between them, glowing with a green light. Inside, fragmented images of the palace's layout, secret corridors, and the location of high-level security nodes appeared. An unauthorized map, potentially catastrophic if misused. Aidra's mind raced. Whoever had sent this diplomat had access to information that could destabilize her kingdom within hours. Kalen's expression hardened. "We must move," he said quietly, guiding her toward a lesser-known service corridor. The masked guests were oblivious to their passage, engrossed in the spectacle, yet the palace itself seemed aware, the hum of AI security systems tightening subtly around them. Aidra's pulse thrummed in rhythm with the city's neon heartbeat. As they navigated narrow halls lined with adaptive walls that could record, listen, or trap intruders in seconds. "Why help me?" Aidra asked, her voice low, a whisper carried between them. "You could disappear, leave me to manage this threat alone. Why stay?" Kalen glanced at her, a shadow of vulnerability crossing his features. "Because," he said, "some truths cannot be uncovered alone, and because I see in you the courage the city claims to worship, but rarely understands." Aidra felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with an unexpected emotion she could not yet name. Trust, she realized, was fragile, but attraction, magnetic and dangerous, could be just as powerful a force. She focused on the task at hand. They reached a small, dimly lit room, its walls lined with monitors that displayed the palace's inner systems. The unauthorized hologram flickered faintly, integrating with the room's display. Together, Aidra and Kalen analyzed the images, tracing circuits, corridors, and nodes. Every line connected to a person, a device, or a potential point of infiltration. Aidra's strategic mind raced. This was more than a simple breach. It was a prelude to something larger. She realized that the masquerade was a distraction, a test, and perhaps the first act in a plot designed to topple the crown. As she studied the holographic map, Kalen's hand brushed hers, again unplanned, again electric, Aidra's violet. Eyes met his, and in that moment the palace outside, the neon city below, and the crowd of oblivious guests all seemed to recede. Their partnership, forged in secrecy and danger, had begun to take shape not just as allies, but as confidants bound by unspoken trust and a shared sense of destiny. The hum of the palace returned to normal, masking the tension that lingered like a living thing. Aidra straightened, her fingers leaving the holographic interface. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "Whatever is coming, we must be ready." Kalen nodded. "And we will be. Together." Outside, the neon city pulsed in anticipation, unaware that within the palace walls, the first moves of a game with stakes higher than any coronation had already begun. Shadows had awakened, and Aidra, Princess of Rominiax, was poised to meet them head-on. The morning after the coronation, Rominiax's palace hummed with a quieter, almost deceptive energy. The neon glow from the sprawling city outside cast pale, shifting reflections across the obsidian walls, giving the grand corridors a surreal, liquid-like shimmer. Aidra moved through them alone, her steps silent against the polished floor, her violet eyes scanning for anomalies. The previous night's cryptic message lingered in her mind, like a whisper she could not ignore. Her chambers, usually a sanctuary of comfort and opulence, felt strangely cold. The AI-controlled lights dimmed automatically as she approached, a soft acknowledgement of her presence, yet she sensed an almost imperceptible disturbance. She paused near her vanity, observing the subtle vibrations in the air. Tiny, irregular, flickers of the holographic displays around her. The palace, she realized, was not just watching her. It was communicating, warning her in ways even she could barely interpret. Aidra's thoughts were interrupted by a faint click, a sound so soft it could have been the settling of the palace itself. She turned sharply. Nothing, yet the sensation of being watched prickled at her skin. She approached the source of the sound, a small maintenance access panel near the eastern wall. Its cover had been slightly ajar, a microscopic scratch along the edge. Aidra's breath caught. Someone had been here, and the palace's AI had not detected it, or perhaps it had been deliberately allowed. She crouched, examining the panel. Inside were wires and microcircuitry, but one particular device caught her attention. A tiny surveillance drone, sleek, almost organic in design, its body shimmering faintly with adaptive camouflage. Aidra's fingers hovered over it. Whoever planted this drone was skilled, not just in technology, but in subtlety. The shadow in the palace had a name, and it was clever. Before she could extract it, a soft hum approached from behind. Aidra pivoted, her violet gaze locking on a figure stepping out from the corridor. A man, tall, impeccably dressed in dark attire that blended formal elegance with functional utility, observed her calmly. His eyes were sharp, calculating, yet there was a faint hint of curiosity in them, almost amusement. "Good morning, Princess," he said, his voice smooth, carrying a tone that was both respectful and unnervingly aware. "I trust the coronation did not overwhelm you." Aidra narrowed her eyes. "Who are you? You are not scheduled for chamber duty." He tilted his head slightly, a subtle smirk curling at the corner of his lips. "Perhaps I am not here for duty. Perhaps I am here because someone thought it wise to leave a message you would notice." He gestured toward the access panel and the drone inside. "I believe you are quite perceptive, Princess." Aidra stiffened. The presence of this stranger, unknown yet somehow familiar in his confidence, sent a shiver down her spine. "And why exactly would someone leave a surveillance device in my chambers?" she demanded, her tone a mixture of authority and caution. "To test you," he said simply, "to see how you react when the rules are bent, when trust is a currency, and the walls themselves may be lying." Aidra's pulse quickened. "And who exactly are you, friend or enemy?" The man's gaze softened for a moment, almost imperceptibly. "That, Princess, is for you to decide. But consider this. Shadows do not move without reason, and every whisper has its weight. Some are dangerous, others necessary." Before she could reply, the faint sound of footfalls echoed through the hallway. Mechanical, deliberate, the stranger's expression shifted. The faint amusement vanished. "You have visitors," he murmured. "Uninvited." Aidra's eyes darted toward the corridor. A small translucent sphere floated toward them, its surface refracting the neon light into a spectrum of shifting colors. The sphere stopped mid-air, and a holographic message projected from within, a warning encrypted in symbols that pulsed, like living circuitry. Aidra's hand instinctively moved to the hilt of the ceremonial blade she carried always, a blend of tradition and high-tech defense. The message was simple, yet chilling. Do not trust the crown. Shadows are closer than they appear. Aidra's mind raced. The palace had never been breached in such a manner, not since the early AI enhancements had fortified its defenses. Someone was testing her, pushing boundaries. But why? And who among the palace's countless staff, advisors, and dignitaries was complicit? The stranger stepped closer, his presence a mixture of reassurance and tension. "I can help you," he said quietly, almost conspiratorially. "But first, you must trust me, at least enough to hear what I know. Time is thinner than you imagine, Princess, and every moment wasted is a chance lost." Aidra hesitated, the weight of her responsibility pressing against her. The throne would demand loyalty, obedience, strategy, but she could not ignore the pulse of danger at her doorstep. Her violet eyes met his for a long moment, measuring truth against instinct, curiosity against caution. "Very well," she said finally, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "Tell me what you know, but one misstep, and I will." "Consider you an enemy," the man inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the unspoken agreement. "Understood," he said, "but beware, Princess. In Rominiax, even the shadows have their own agendas, and not all who offer guidance do so out of kindness." Outside her window, the city of Rominiax stretched in neon brilliance, oblivious to the silent storm brewing within its palace walls. Aidra clenched her fists briefly, determination setting into the curve of her shoulders. This was her world, and she would uncover the truth, whatever the cost. Yet, even as she prepared for the challenges ahead, a small, insistent voice whispered, "In her mind, some shadows are closer than you think, and not all of them wear masks." Aidra's violet eyes hardened. The game had begun, and she would not lose. The sky above Rominiax pulsed with electric veins of neon, the city sprawling like a living organism across the Eastern European landscape. Skyscrapers of shimmering crystal rose beyond the clouds, their surfaces alive with holographic projections, announcing everything from news to grand artistic displays. Hovercars zipped along invisible tracks, their engines humming a low harmonic resonance that blended seamlessly with the distant thrumming of anti-gravity lifts. Amid this breathtaking panorama, the Grand Palace stood like a crown atop a hill, its towers carved from a material that shifted color with the movement of the sun and the glow of neon, reflecting the city's boundless wealth and technological mastery. Inside the palace, corridors of polished obsidian stretched endlessly, lined with sentient lights that adjusted intensity and hue based on the footsteps of those who passed. The walls whispered faintly, a subtle hum of AI-driven security, scanning, recording, predicting. Every corner of this fortress of luxury was alive with data, every doorway a node in an intricate network of surveillance. But for Aidra, Princess of Rominiax, the most important thing was not the technology nor the sprawling empire that lay beyond, but the weight of expectation pressing against her shoulders. Today was her coronation, though she had long felt that she had been reigning in all but name. The citizens of Rominiax were loyal, worshipful, and curious in equal measure. From her balcony she could see thousands of people gathered in the Grand Plaza, their tiny faces upturned like constellations of devotion. Hollow banners floated above, them displaying her image in regal attire, her violet eyes edited to glow subtly as a symbol of her grace and power. She did not smile, the act felt foreign. Power, she knew, was not something that came naturally. It was an inheritance, and with it came duty and chains. Aidra adjusted the hem of her coronation robe, a flowing garment of interwoven metallic, fibers that shimmered faintly, changing color from deep violet to crimson with the motion of her body. The robe's technology was subtle but functional. It monitored her vitals, enhanced her posture, and could, if necessary, generate a small protective field. Yet she felt no comfort in the armor. She had worn it all her life, and still it was not enough to shield her from the invisible threats that stalked the palace. A quiet chime echoed through her chamber. Aidra's eyes, violet and penetrating, scanned the room. A small device on her desk blinked with urgency, a message encrypted with the highest level of palace security. She recognized the pattern immediately. Someone was trying to bypass the palace's AI defenses, leaving a breadcrumb meant only for her. Aidra's pulse quickened. Only a handful of people in Rominiax had the knowledge and skill to reach her in this manner. The message read, "Not all is as it seems. Shadows move where you least expect. Trust only what your eyes reveal." Aidra's brow furrowed. The warning was clear, but the sender unknown. Her curiosity, a trait both celebrated and feared in royal circles, flared. She knew that the coronation would be a performance, a dance, for the citizens and the international delegates. But it also marked the beginning of something she could not yet name. A conspiracy, perhaps, or an unseen hand guiding events from the shadows. The ceremonial hall awaited. As Aidra descended the crystalline staircase, her boots whispered against the polished surface, the soft sound swallowed by the hum of hovering drones above. Guests were assembled, their attire a mixture of traditional Rominiax elegance and futuristic flair, metallic trims, glowing jewelry, adaptive fabrics. Among them she noticed some faces lingering a fraction too long, eyes flickering with curiosity, or was it calculation? She filed each one away mentally. Observation had always been her first line of defense. When she entered the grand hall, a hush fell over the crowd. The lights dimmed slightly, focusing on her like a spotlight in a theater. Aidra's gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of her father, the aging but formidable ruler of Rominiax. He gave a slight nod, a mixture of pride and a silent command, "Rule wisely, daughter, or perish in the attempt." Aidra inclined her head in acknowledgement, every step echoing with measured precision. The high priest of Rominiax began the ritual, his voice deep and resonant, amplified subtly by hidden tech that made it almost vibrate through the bones of those present. Words in the ancient Romanian dialect were recited, blessings for wisdom, protection, and insight. Aidra's hand rested on the hilt of a ceremonial blade embedded with microsensors, part tradition, part security. She felt the energy of the palace itself, almost alive beneath her fingers, a network of intelligence spanning centuries, always watching, always calculating. As the final blessing ended, a sudden flicker in the holographic displays caught her eye. A shadow moved where no shadow should have been, a silhouette at the far end of the hall, near the security nodes. Her heart skipped a beat. The presence was fleeting, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Had she imagined it? Or was this the first visible hint of the message's warning? Aidra's violet eyes scanned the hall once more, her mind racing. Ceremony or no ceremony, the rules of engagement had changed. The neon city outside was dazzling, a testament to human achievement, but within the palace danger lurked in the silence between the lights. She was a princess, but she was also a detective, a strategist, a guardian of a people who adored her, and she would not be caught unaware. In that instant, amidst the applause and ceremonial fanfare, Aidra made a silent vow. Whatever shadow moved, against her or her kingdom, she would meet it head-on. With her mind sharp, her heart steady, and her violet gaze burning with resolve, she stepped fully into her role, not just as a symbol of power, but as the unseen force that would protect Rominiax, even if the city itself did not yet realize the storm approaching.